The topic of my talk today is technology for translating, visualizing, and generating Chinese recipes. This talk will be divided into 5 parts. Firstly, I will talk about recipe and Chinese food culture. The second part, I will discuss the linguistic and translation issues of recipes and the procedure of constructing TransRecipe. Part 3 is about the creation of VisualRecipe with the mouse over function. And part 4 is about the creation of GenRecipe by the video snapshot matching method. And the last part, the conclusion, we look at the future of recipe technology. Firstly, what is a recipe? The way we understand it is a set of instructions for making or preparing food dishes, including dish names, ingredients, and method of preparation. If you look at, say, a common dish that we often have, what we call the dry fry rice flour noodles with beef, then we know the gan cao niu he is the dish name, and then followed by 7 steps of methods of preparation. Before then, we have the ingredients, meaning the rice flours, and beef, bean sprouts, onions, white sesame, and coriander. And this is what is typically a recipe is about. And then I think we will have to talk about what we call Chinese food culture, because Chinese food is considered to be one of the most popular cuisines in the world. We are having what we call a food-centered culture. We have the finest food in the world. I don't know whether it is true or not, but we have very delicious dishes in Guangdong. Typically, we divide the style of cooking into 4 major regions: North, Eastern, Western, and Southern regions. This is the kind of map showing the 4 regions: the Northern regions cuisine, the Eastern cuisine, as well as the Southern cuisine, as well as the West cuisine, according to the direction, the 4 directions. Another way of categorizing Chinese cuisines would be put them into 8 divisions, as shown in another map. Say if you are in Beijing, I think most likely you'll be having Beijing or Peking roast duck. And then if you go to Zhejiang, then most likely the signature dish would be what we call hairy crab, steamed hairy crab. And then in the south, we've got Fujian cuisine, rather interesting. But in Hong Kong and elsewhere, we have dim sum and seafood. In Sichuan, for instance, we have spicy food. And then in the north, we have the noodles and so on. I was told that the small bit of dish in Shandong is known as lion's head meatball. Okay, so this is how Chinese food is divided according to regions. Recently, I think not only recently, for a very long time, interest in cuisine and recipes is really widespread in all parts of the world. We are not only happy with eating food, but we also would like to prepare food dishes according to some sort of ingredients and cook them in some particular ways. As interest in Chinese cuisine is getting stronger and stronger, I think it's very important that we promote Chinese food culture through translation, visualization, and generating recipes. I think it is, well, nowadays AI is on the lip of everybody. Everybody's talking about AI and so on and so forth. But despite the popularity of AI-driven translation, I believe that the traditional approaches, including rule-based approach, is still an effective way. But to use or to adopt what we call the rule-based approach, we have to do a very detailed analysis of the linguistic, grammatical, and cultural aspect of the source languages and apply rules to realize high-quality output in the target language. So that comes to part 2, where we talk about how to translate recipe by the system TransRecipe. TransRecipe is a fully automatic translation system for translating Chinese cookbook into English based on what we call transfer model. Transfer model combines a number of approaches. Firstly, it would be corpus-based approach. That is, you have built the databases for the system. I built a lexical dictionary of 2,000 entries, and then food and drink specific terminology of 20,000 entries. And then you can also put what we call commonly used or recurring sentences, expressions in the what we call example-based database. So I put in something like 200 entries for example-based for the example-based approach. And then we try to make use of the sentence patterns, Chinese sentence patterns, and put it in the database as a way of translating the source language from Chinese into English. This is the third approach. And then lastly, the most important one is what we call the rule-based approach. I have written about 700 parsing rules in order to build this system known as TransRecipe. I think in order to build this system, we have to do a detailed analysis of the contents of recipes. Firstly, it's about the naming of dishes. Dishes, according to my study, are named in 9 major ways. It could be named culturally, geographically, linguistically, methodologically, visually, gustatorially, numerically, componentially, and methodologically. These are the 9 major ways of naming dishes. I think knowing how dishes are named is very important for the design and development of the system. So firstly, about the cultural aspect of dish names, we can name a dish after its creator. Some people are very famous. So Su Dongpo, who is a great scholar in the Song Dynasty, and people try to express their respect to him by giving him lots of pork. So the pork dish prepared by Su Si or Su Dongpo is known as Dongpo Ru. This is the name after Su Dongpo. And then the second example is has something to do with the Ding Baozhen, who was actually the Governor General of Sichuan in the late Qing period. And he prepared a dish because his last position was Taizi Shaobao. So that's why the dish he prepared is known as Gong Bao Ji Ding. This is the second example of naming a dish after its creator. And then we have got Yang Guifei into the picture because Yang Guifei expressed interest in flying to the sky. So somebody called Su Kongtou actually prepared chicken wings according to her design, and this happened to be one of the most popular dishes in Suzhou, known as Gui Fei Ji, and so on. And then lastly, the Jiao Hua Zi Ji was something to do with a beggar baking a chicken with mud, and then it was known as the beggar's kitchen. He's nobody. And then lastly, the Ma Po Doufu that we often have in Shanghainese restaurant has something to do with Chen Ma Po. And the beancurd dish prepared by Mrs. Chen Fu Shen is known as Ma Po Doufu. This is how the whole thing. Lastly, the Tai Bai Ya, I beg your pardon, has something to do with our great poet Li Bai, who prepared the duck dish in Sichuan style, known as Tai Ba Ya. That is, and then people in China are very culture conscious. So in festive occasions, they try to use names which would fit into the occasion. So we have this Hong Tu Da Zhan Ci, what is known as shark fin with chicken and abalone, usually consumed during the Chinese New Year. And then we can also name a dish in a descriptive manner, culturally. 血腹长猪, it has something to do with crab, with quail eggs in shelled. And then we have this, by effects, 清润糖水, nourishing sweetened soup, which we often consumed as a dessert, okay, after meal. Then we also use idioms in our naming. It's 老少平安, steamed days with beancurd. Also another example, this is very interesting, what we call 猪八戒踢足球. I really don't know what the whole thing is about, but when translated into English, I know that it's braised pig's trotters with eggs, all right? Now these photos and diagrams are made by my colleague Li Jin, okay? And then we also use what we call ear-piercing terms to describe food in a cultural way. When we refer to shrimps, we say it's bai hua. So when you have bai hua ji, it's actually steamed chicken stuffed with shrimps. We also describe something in a very poetic way. If it's a vegetable, we call it fei cui. Okay, so when it's 翡翠虾仁, it's actually shrimp with green vegetable. And then we also refer egg white to 芙蓉. So when we have this 芙蓉燕窝, this is actually egg white with bird's nest. Okay, and when it comes to jelly, we also refer to it as 水晶 as an alternative term. So 水晶鸡 is actually jellied chicken, all right? And we often have what we call 炸锦, which is actually assorted. So when it's 炸锦窝面, it's actually pot noodles with assorted meat. So that is a way we translate what we call cultural aspect of dish names. Sometimes we have also dishes named after geographical locations. Say sometimes the first example would be Peking roast duck, or this is the Beijing Tianya, meaning we refer to the city and then use its name as part of the dish name. And we also use lakes and mountains in our naming of dishes. Say West Lake shower fish is 西湖醋鱼. And then we also refer to some dishes by province, such as 福州炒笋, flyer bamboo shoots in Fujian style. And then we also have referred to dishes according to certain province style, such as spicy fish slices in Suzhou style. In Chinese, it's called 苏式熏鱼. And then also geographically, we also refer to regions and rivers as part of the name of a dish. Say we've got Dongjiang Cai, meaning Dongjiang cuisine. And then all these has to do with Chinese dishes, but we also refer to foreign country, we use foreign country names to designate some dishes that we prepare in a Western style. Say 葡子菊是酥, I beg your pardon, baked assorted vegetables with Portuguese sauce. So this is the geographical aspect. Sometimes dish names have what we call linguistic aspects. Say we have 客家让豆腐, which means stuffed beancurd in Hakka style. And then we also use metaphors in our dish names. It's a 松鼠王鱼, meaning sweet and sour boneless fish. 松鼠 meaning squirrels, and 王鱼 meaning yellow croaker. So together, cook it with, in a sweet and sour way, we put the name as sweet and sour boneless fish. Then we also look at dish names from componential aspects. Actually, when you look at the components of a dish, we can come up with 559, that's it, 559 dishes names that have to do with components. First is what we call one-part component. That is, it's simply one part. Also, it has to do something with idioms, set expressions. Say, 该家偶天成 is fire lotus root spices, kale and olive. It also with the one-part formation. Say it's 唐不, is it 衰? In Cantonese it's 唐不甩. It's easier to pronounce in Cantonese, but actually it means dumplings in syrup. And then we have got two-part formations. There are so many of them, but I simply cite one example. I mean, it has to do with accessory vegetable plus meat, for instance. 蒜蓉牛肉, fried garlic beef, that would be one example. We also have got what we call three-part formation. That is, the dish has three components. We have got accessory vegetable plus sauce plus meat. The 香茅惹汁鸡, chicken with lemongrass and coconut milk, it can be cited as an example. We also have four-part formation. You have this container, vegetable, cooking method, plus grocery. One example would be 竹筒节瓜炖包翅. It's stewed shark fin with mallows in bamboo tubes. And lastly, what we call the five-part formation. You have fruit, grocery, cooking method, seafood or river food, plus the type of food prepared. One example cited would be 蜜瓜花果包响螺头汤. But put it in English, it's simply conch soup with melon. Now, these are the methods, components. Well, when it comes to the method of cooking, it's so numerous. When I study this TransRecipe, I have to study many cookbooks and so on and so forth, and consider how to put them from Chinese into English. Eventually, we found that altogether 90 cooking methods, or even 91. One was removed for some reason. And then we can't sort of list them alphabetically or according to Hanyi, Pinyin. So I put them into 20 categories for your consumption. Firstly, it's about baking. You can say bake. You can use the word 红, bake. Say 烧子红蛋. Or 曲 would be braising, 姜葱曲梨, braised carp with ginger and Welsh onion, and so on. It can be also 香菊 or 盐菊 as part of the baking method. Second method that we discover or notice is blanching. You say you have this 白切海螺片, blanched conched slices. The third method has to do with boiling. You can use the word 煲, say 胡椒煲猪肚汤, or use 白云, which means white boil, say 白云凤爪, meaning white boiled chicken feet, and so on. You can have 白煮, say if you boil eggs, then this 白煮蛋. If you quick boil something, that is 宣 I don't know how to pronounce the word. It's C-U-A-N anyway. 鱼片黄瓜 is quick boiled sliced fish with cucumber, and so on. And the third method is 滚, boiling. Is 生滚, meaning you put the raw stuff into something. You have this 生滚田鸡煮, congee with flocks, and then you can also 煮 under the category of boiling, say 白米煮虾, 煮豆腐, braised white dried shrimps with beancurd. And then the third method is braising. Braising can simply, you can use the word pa to describe the cooking method. Say pa ji would be braised chicken. And you can also braise it with kind of cream. Then this is bai pa, say bai pa yu du cai xin, and so on. Also you can use broiled play, say li yu pei mian would be another way. Okay, so actually one of the most frequent words that we come across in cooking books would be zha, okay, meaning deep fry. You have zha doufu, deep fry beancurd, or cui zha, crisp deep fry. Cui zha sheng hao, meaning that you just do it in a quick way. Okay, and then you have this gan zha, meaning dry deep feed. Okay, jian zha, and then you have got qin zha, ran zha. You have got sheng zha, su zha. Okay, any more zhas? Xiang zha and zi bao zha. Okay, there are so many ways that we deep fry food, but then produce excellent dishes in this manner. Okay, another way of saying zha would be ji lian, say ji lian niu pa, meaning deep fry steak. Okay, so on. Okay, so this is what we call dry. Also, one way of cooking would be deep boiling. That is, you just put something into a container very quickly. One quick example is shuai rang lu. Okay, so that would be deep boiled mutton. Okay, and then we have got dressing. If you don't cook something, but just dress it with some sauce, this is dressing. Say 凉拌米粉, the cold dressed vermicelli. Okay. Also, you can 淋 something, 油淋, say 油淋格子, 夹子, sorry, 格子. Okay, oil dripped pigeons, and then more to come is bao, flying. Flying is a very complicated concept because we've got several words that can be translated as flying. That is why it's so difficult to use what we call AI to translate, because the same term in different contexts can be translated differently. Say, flying can be, the word bao can be used to translate flying, or to be translated into flying. The bao meaning quick fly, okay? Say, bao cao xian pian, we could quick stir fry eel slices. If you bao sao, meaning you can quick fry in brown sauce. One example would be bao sao yu ci, quick fry shark fin in brown sauce. Huo bao, it doesn't refer to temper, it's about the way of cooking. Okay, quick fry, and then huo bao yao hua would be quick fry pig's kidney. Okay, jiang bao would be you put in some sauce in quick frying. You put in salt, then it would be yan bao. Okay, I think one dish I like, yan bao you yu juan. Okay, salt fried squid rolls. And then you also can use you as the way of quick frying. That would be you bao, quick fry clam, and so on. And then another word for frying would be pan fry. Okay, and gan pian and pian and so on. And chao would be another commonly used word for frying. Stir fry is the collection, is the translation. And then we've got chao cai xin xia qiu, stir fried prawn balls with cabbage hearts. And then the example that we will give would be gan chao niu he, okay, dry fried sliced beef with rice noodles. And then you can also qin cao, also ran cao, sheng cao or su cao, and yan cao, and so on. So Chinese cooking is marvelous, isn't it? Stir frying can be cooked in so many ways. And then another term to do with cooking methods would be jian. Jian can be a kind of shallow fly, can be translated as shallow fly, and then jian zhu, meaning they fly, and then what? Jian, well, I think a degree of flying, and then ban jian zhu and so on. You have the gan jian or sheng jian. You can have xiang jian, and then another concept has to do with the way we cook with some sweet and sour sauce. If you do it this way, then this is liu, okay? A literal translation would be slippery fly, and if you use some wine sauce to do your slippery fly, then it will be 潮流. Say 潮流海斑球 is galupa balls in wine sauce, okay? We also do a bit of grilling, okay? 烤, you can 烤白菜, you can 生烤, meaning you grill it in raw, okay? And then roasting is one common method, one cooking method. You can have 干烧, you can have 锅烧, you can have 酱烧, you can simply 烧 or 爆香. 爆香 is saute, okay? Sauteing is one common method. 爆香姜片, saute ginger slices. And then we discovered that when we try to look at the cooking methods, there are many methods that has to do with sauce. If you put in white sauce, that is bai hui. If you put in some tomato sauce, for instance, it will be in brown sauce. If you put in some sour sauce, it will be 潮流, 醋流, I beg your pardon. And then 红烧, you stewed in brown sauce, okay? And scalding is another cooking method. You can scald spinach, or you can 油泡, oil scald. Say one of the favorite dishes that we have would be 油泡龙虾球, oil scalded lobster balls, okay? Another method would be skewering. We do it 串烧, skewer pork fillets and things like that. And then we also do smoking. It can be smoked, you can have smoked yellow clocker. You can have smoke with something fragrant, 一颗香薰, and then you can also simply 熏鱼. And then sometimes you use some sauce or some oil to do the soaking, which means we often have this gobi in oil, meaning 油蒸笋褐鱼, and so on. Spicing is also one of the common methods in cooking. You use the Chinese word for it will be 卤墨鱼仔, spiced cuttlefish. Okay, and then steaming is another common method. You can steam with rice flour, which means 粉蒸. If you steam it dry, then this is 干蒸. If you steam it in its own way, then it's 清蒸, or you simply steam it, it would be 蒸. Okay, stewing would be a kind of stew slowly. Dun would be stewed in a long way. That would be 红焖, meaning you stew with brown sauce. 黄焖 also in brown sauce. Okay, 清炖 meaning that you stew with stock. 油炖 meaning we stew with some brown sauce or with oil. Okay, and so on. Another method was stew. 扣三丝 would be stew, mixed shreds, and so on. Okay, this is the last one. Simmer. Okay, if you simmer something over high heat, in Chinese it will be 煨夹子. Okay, so there are so many dish names. How do we translate them? I think there are 21 methods that we can use to translate dish names. One is to have addition. Say if it's 紫菜青衣鱼柳, I beg your pardon, you can simply say that this is something crispy. So the word crispy is added for this translation. Sometimes we need to add something and reorder the order. Say, 母耳炒猪润, its 炒 goes first, fly pig's liver with wood fungus. This is the way to do it. And then the third method would be annotation. You tell people what is actually 东坡肉, which is translated as braised pork. And then the fourth method would be explanation in your translation. Say 红糟牛腩, it should be stewed, is something added, but with radish residue of fermented grains. This with radish residue of fermented grains would be explanation of the dish name. And then you have got full translation of numerals. Sometimes you've got 凉笋汤, 三鲜汤. You really don't know what this 三鲜 refers to. So we put it down the in full what the sun refers to. A bologna, prawns, and chicken soup. Okay? And then we have got generalization of, meaning that this is 生鱼汤, but you simply put down as fish soup without mentioning 生鱼. And then we also come across what we call image conversion method. We often, when we go to a fish, we often have this 金华入素鸡. What does it mean then? It means chicken with ham and green vegetable. 金华 meaning ham, but 玉素 meaning green vegetable. Okay, so we can also translate something literally. Say 红烧鱼肚 would be braised fish mole, and then you can also omit something. Say 红豆墨鱼猪骨汤. We simply say cuttlefish soup without mentioning 红豆. Okay, and then you also have translations which have omissions and additions. Say if you have 香菇包贝 Pa, 金白, and then we put in addition of braised, and then what is it? 金白 is 金白 is there, but what is omitted? 香菇? Yes, the word 鲜 is omitted, okay? Sometimes you have got place name translation. You pick up 蓬蓬鸡. I really don't know what it is about. Actually, it's Sichuan favored chicken, which means rather spicy. Okay. You also reorder with an omission with one method, and sometimes you simply do what we call semantic translation. 鸿运当头酱子入. What do you mean by 鸿运当头酱子? We simply get as a pork, braised pork belly. And specialization, substitution, I think I don't need to translate. Sometimes we simply transliterate the dish name. Say 春盘面, we won't put it as, say 春盘面, 春盘 noodles, and then and so on. I think these are the methods that we use in translating dish names. And in ingredients, one thing that we notice is that it has a large number of measure words. Measure words become a very characteristic of a recipe. How do we treat them? Also, Chinese numerals. We knew that Chinese numeral can be written in several ways: Arabic way, the native way, also the pinyin and simplified characters and traditional characters. It seems to be so simple. When you look at this, you know what it means. But for machine system, you really have to tell them whether this stands for 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. So this is quite different from the way we human translation. This is the measure word that we mentioned: 青椒, how many, 一折, 蒜肉六粒, and so on and so forth. And this is so. In other words, we are treating the treatment of measure words in recipes is something very characteristic of the Sino-Tibetan language, and we have to do them in a very systematic manner. Okay, so the way we translate measure words is to do firstly what we call exact translation. If we say this is 茶匙, we simply put it as teaspoon, or its abbreviation TSP. And then sometimes we know that we don't have to use to repeat the measure word in our translation. 是十辆汽车, we simply say 10 cars. Although you can simply use multiple translations, say the word 真 can be translated differently in different contexts, and we have to do so in the most common method that we use would be conversion, because Chinese recipes are written in Jin and Liang, and then we have to put it into what we call the British system or the metric system to be consumed by English-speaking people or other foreigners. Now we come to the translation of the text. This part has something to do with the method of preparation of a recipe. I think recipes are different from other texts in a sense, in a way that it's a kind of imperative sentences. It's a kind of procedural discourse. Now, in this, since this is the case, we simply have to analyze the sentences in adjectives, in recipes, and come up with some solutions to how to translate them. Okay. Sometimes we have sentences beginning with adjectives. Say 急动气和清口, okay, meaning that this chill and shelled muscles, and that is beginning adjectives. Some sentences beginning with adverbs. 将 something 放平, 将 is an adverb. Sometimes you have sentences that begin with conjunctions. 和 something 半圆, and then you have sentences that beginning with common noun and sentences with prepositions. You have to think about, that is why we put in sentence patterns in our system, all right? And sometimes the pronouns and so on and so forth. So it comes, since we have analyzed the dish name, ingredients, and the method of translation in a very detailed manner, then we can start to construct what we call the TransRecipe system. The first stage is to put in a number of examples in our examples database, so that we don't need to translate, do any translation or do any rule writing. The second phase is to put in what we call corpus in our system, so that we have the general terms to use, we have the terminology, the food and drinks to use. And then to the third stage, we try to put in the sentence patterns into the system, so that the sentences that are there can, the patterns that are there can be translated automatically. And lastly, we had to do what we call the rule-based approach, writing rules for specific sentences for text generation. This is what we do it. So the entire system runs like this. You put in the source sentence, and then you have the general dictionary database working, and the specialized dictionary working as well. We do the tagging, and then we do the sentence analysis. We write the rules to do the transfer, and we get the text generated, and then the English sentences produced accordingly. Okay. Now this is a system known as TransRecipe. On the right-hand side, you have the input text. On the other side, you have the output text. This is very convenient. It's fully automatic. If you find something rather unsatisfactory, then a kind of rule-based database box can pop up. So you can put in more rules and so on, or you can create examples so that next time when you have the same sentence to be translated, it can be dealt with in an adequate manner. Okay, so a byproduct of this this TransRecipe is a food and drink translation system, which is divided into 4 parts: the food part, the drinks part, and the expression part. Also, you can search for any terms in this particular system. So this is about the first system that we mentioned, TransRecipe. The second stage is we want to do what we call the VisualRecipe. I think increasingly people find it necessary to visualize what is there in recipes. So we believe that that is good for use by food lovers who would like to cook dishes. VisualRecipe have 3 generation modes. It can do textual translation. It can do visual translation. It can do textual visual translation. So we do it in this manner. The first stage, we have this VisualRecipe system for use for textual translation. So you have the text in box, the text out box. So this is actually something similar to TransRecipe. When we have this VisualRecipe system, you have put in the text, the text into the text in box. Out comes the images, image out box. That is, what you put in will not come out in text, but in images. Then I think the two combined together, we have got text in, text out, and image out box. That would be 3 systems, 3 in 1 system. All right. The way we work it is like in this manner. You have these Chinese source text. You have this all this. The part 1 has something to do with the TransRecipe. The part 2 would be the image, and part 3 would be the image. What is it? Part 1 would be source in. Part 2 will be text out. Part 3 will be image out. This is about visual translation. But we think that a simple way of doing this would be what we use the mouse over function. That is, if you have a line or a sentence in a recipe, you move the mouse over the sentence such that what comes out would not be the translation of the text, but a picture of what you should do with the translation. So, as an example, we want to ask people to prepare 干炒牛河, what we call stir-fry sliced beef with rice noodles in brown sauce. So this is the menu of doing this. But if you want to do it visually, then you move the cursor over 将打在一起的河粉分开, and then the picture will pop up in a box showing you what this is how things are done in a visual manner. This is so. This is step 1, and then if you want to step 2, then you move the mouse over the sentence so that what comes out will be something like that. This is the so sentence by sentence the procedure of preparing a dish would be completed in this manner. So this is the. I did also prepare a kind of video system to go with this VisualRecipe system, because, say, we can prepare a video for the recipe in question, so the whole thing will be shown in a video. But I think the bad thing is that you can't sort of follow very closely with the running of the video. So we think that the mouse over or function would be more convenient. So this is one thing I think. The last part in system creation would be what we call GenRecipe. That is a system that would generate recipes automatically. I think recipe generation has been rather a topic of wide interest. I think we have got recipe generation models produced by different methods. I think image recognition can be widely applied to food domain. In the past, people use what we call support vector machine to do the food image recognition, so that we can come out with this with some recipe. Later, we use convolutional neural network to recognize complex pattern in images, so that we can get something out of this all these networks. And then more recently is recurrent neural network, so that we can have this. We can produce recipes out of this RNN. More recently, we use large language models, LLMs, in recipe generation. Actually, I did another project on the football recognition, where we use LLM to produce what we call commentaries for football, and then so on. But LLM is very useful because we have got large data for the production of recipe and so on. I think that is very useful. People who are specialized in LLM could try it with this method. Also, I think that is translating recipes from cooking videos sometimes may not be so as difficult as it might seem. I'll go to conclusion then. Okay, you can get some videos, some recipes out of the videos. You can, because videos have spoken words and display texts, you can use the spoken words and display text for recipe generation. Okay, this is how. Also, you can use some transcription system to get what is shown or spoken in videos to form recipes. That is one thing. Okay, so you can even use what we call the video translation tool to get something translated into the language that you are familiar with, to produce a menu that you can understand. Okay, so this is how the whole thing is done. But I have to wrap up this presentation. This is what we call snapshot production, without much. And why there are so many slides to go. Okay, the last part is the conclusion, where we look at the future of recipe generation. I've been, I think, as AI is fast evolving and advancing by leaps and bounds, it's extremely difficult to predict what technology will emerge for translating, visualizing, and materializing recipes in the near future or even distant future. What is important, it occurs to me, or as illustrated in recipe processing, is that for domain-specific areas, data analysis, subject knowledge, and methods used in the field will continue to play an important role in the design and development of technology for, in the case of recipes. Okay, this is the book due out in September, bearing more or less the same title as I'm giving today. It will be out in September, and thank you so much. Thank you.